Life Audio.
10 lessons from the single mom that every single mom needs to know right now on episode 32 of the Get Your Brave On podcast. Motherhood just got a lot more brave from Sara, Beth. She's my good friend, personal trainer, mindset coach, and an incredible single mom that's about to impart on you her 10 lessons on what she learned about how to be the mother that she always wanted and how you can be the mother that your children really need right now.
Picking up where we left off, my good friend Sara Beth is here. She's a brave babe, officially telling her brave story of going through trauma as a child. That was the previous episode. If you missed it, go check it out, episode number 31. And now talking about how she's turned that around to make a difference in people's lives, specifically as a single mom, which is amazing. Okay, so we left you and you were clinging on to hope for your son, and he was a miracle baby. Doctors thought he would have all of these problems. You're like, nope, he's fine. He ended up having no problems at all. He's absolutely fine. How old is he now?
He is going to be 12 in May.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
wild.
He's the same age as my youngest son. Okay. So then what happened? Because you became a single mom. Can you tell me about that? Let's pick up where the story left off. All this trauma, then 2 babies, you've got your dream, and then divorce.
Yeah. And my dream was, it's hard to call it a dream in the moment looking back on it. I really immersed myself in my kids because my marriage definitely left something to be desired. Okay. My ex-husband and I were together from the time I was 17, 18, till 26. And so when we divorced, I had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And our marriage, I think he's not a horrible person, but we were horrible together.
Understand.
There's just some people who bring out the worst in each other. And our marriage was exactly that. And there was a lot of arguing and a lot of yelling and a lot of name calling. And it was a really controlling and I mean, to say it, abusive space for me. It was very possessive, very controlling, very verbally abusive, very mentally abusive, very emotionally abusive. And one thing I know, though, is that he was always a really great dad. And so we had these kids, and I was still struggling with depression from the time I was a young teenager up until well after we were divorced. But through my marriage, I was very depressed, and I just immersed myself into these kids, and that's how I got through every day. It was always about them, and it needed to be. It kept my head above water. Yep. And then so my youngest sister moved in with me when she was like 17, right out of high school, to be a nanny for my kids, and so she moved in with me. And I mean, God bless her, because I don't know how I would have done any of this without her. She moved in with me, and while I went back to work, she nannied my children up until the time my son reached kindergarten. And my marriage, she was really the only person who saw firsthand like the abuse and the crazy cycle that we continuously found ourselves in. And she would take my kids to the park or to the playground, so they really didn't have to bear witness to all of just the chaos that was in our relationship. But I remember one day coming home, or she came home with my kids, and I looked her in the eyes and I said, "I'm a prisoner in my own life." And I'll say that was probably one of my very first awakenings to my reality, if you will. And as I said that, now, mind you, in my marriage, he had lost the ability to make me cry. And that was always his goal. Always his goal was to make me cry, that was how he won. And so he had lost the ability to make me cry. I was just completely numb to it. And in that moment, I said those words and they left my mouth and they just boomeranged back and hit me head on. And it was the slap in the face that I needed. And I could literally feel the shackles fall off of my wrists, and I just lost it. And I started crying. And I just kept on repeating it. I'm a prisoner in my own life. I'm a prisoner in my own life. And I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. And I said, the prison door is open. And all I have to do is walk out of it. And the very next day I filed for divorce.
Okay.
Now, my ex-husband had me very much, it wasn't the first time I had, quote unquote, tried to leave him. I had tried many times, but it was always the same cycle. It was horrible, horrible, awful until I was walking out the door.
Right.
And the second I was walking out the door and he thought it was real, it was, I'm sorry, I'll get help. I'll take this medication. I'll go see this therapist. I'll do whatever it takes. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. And here I am. I want to believe that.
Right.
And so I did. And it was a cycle. And then it would be good for a couple of months. And then it would slowly get bad. And then it would be terrible. And it would happen again. And so the very next day I filed for divorce. And I remember laying in bed that night thinking, what if everything he said was true? You'll never be anything without me. I'll take those kids from you. You won't have anything without me. You'll have to move back in with your mom, which please, that would definitely not happen. But all of these scare tactics that he really made me believe I had no choice but to stay with him. And I remember laying in bed the night before I filed for divorce thinking, even if worst case scenario, and let's be honest, worst case scenario almost never happens.
Right.
But let's say worst case scenario, even if all of that's true, it would still be better than this.
Oh, that's a good check. In an inner heart check. Yes.
Yeah. And, I realized like in that same night, I'm teaching my son how to treat a woman. And I'm teaching my daughter what is acceptable behavior to accept from her partner. And neither of those examples were okay with me. And it was the first time that I really took a look at the way I approached motherhood in this very intentional way. It's not about me and it's not about him. It's about them. And one day they are going to grow up and they're going to have a story that's different but similar to the one I have, and you have a story, and we all have a story of the way we grew up and the lessons we've learned and the trauma we've faced. And one day they're going to have a story, and this cannot be part of it. And that is my responsibility.
Okay. So how old were they when you became a single mom?
My son, he was 2, and my daughter was 5.
2 and 5. And so now I know Sara lives a very intentional single mom life. I don't think any single mom's like, I'm one too. I don't think we live an unintentional single life. But I think you have a very unique and specific way and strategy of motherhood as a single mom that I would love for you to share with my brave babe. So what would you say your overall vision and mission of Sara Beth, the single mom? What is it?
It's really acknowledging that their lives aren't mine to control. This is their human experience that they are creating, and it is not my responsibility to solve their problems. It is not my responsibility to make them be the person I think they should be. My responsibility as their mom is to teach them how to solve their own problems. And it's to help them realize who they are and accept them and love them for being that person with encouragement and growth, and really teaching them how to use these strategies throughout their entire lives and how they carry over. My sister says to me, she says, one day your kids are going to grow up and they're either going to think you are the wisest person on the planet or that you're a complete crazy person.
I think it's both. I seriously think my kids think both sometimes. They're like, Mom, I think it's their age right now.
Yeah.
I think, mine are all teenagers and they're, I know nothing until they need me.
Yeah.
And I know everything.
Yeah.
So how have you done that? Like, I think, I grew up in a way that I felt I've had to break through some of the identities that I was given by my parents. That I realized, actually, that's not me. And I thought that's who I was supposed to be. I grew up in an extremely conservative the Southern Baptist world in Missouri. So it was a great family experience, amazing, loving people, but I didn't always fit in. I felt like I was always working to fit in and working to be something I actually wasn't on the inside.
Yeah.
And you end up being a screaming young adult, I think, when that happens. So what are the strategies that you're implementing as a single mom to try to not force your way of thinking how they should live their lives within the boundaries of keeping them safe?
Yes, because that's really ultimately our job too, right? We need to keep them safe, protect them from harm without protecting them from life experience. And that is a balancing act that as a parent, as a mother, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to not want to protect your children from the pain of a mistake that you've once made, or the lesson, a hard lesson that you had to learn by, making choice A instead of choice B. And we want so badly to just give them that experience or that wisdom so that they don't have to walk the same path of fire that we had to walk. But that's not our job. Because if somebody would have tried to just tell me when I was a kid, I would have still done what I was going to do anyway. And I think that we see that a lot in like rebellious teenagers, right? When parents, it really comes from a place of love. No, you can't go to that party because we know what's going to be there, and that's not safe, and we don't want you to make this mistake. Instead, I take really the approach of equipping them with the knowledge of what's going to be there, what they can expect, and how to be safe when those choices are put in front of them.
That's good.
And it's really, the overall strategy for me is like complete autonomy over their lives, almost complete autonomy over their lives.
Describe that. What do you mean by that?
So if I don't want them to become the person I want them to be, but instead want them to become the person that they feel the most empowered, the person they are in the core of their being, then I have to give them the space to be that person. And in order to give them the space to be that person, there's got to be a level of competence and independence and autonomy over their own lives for them to be successful at that. And so that autonomy looks like very high levels of independence.
Okay. I'll speak up of, I made a mistake at not allowing something. With your oldest, you make some of the mistakes.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. And I've had to walk that back and change it. And I'm curious, your opinion on, okay, well, someone's listening and like, I haven't done that and I know I should have. And we have regret as parents sometimes for stuff. And this is a simple thing, but my oldest daughter, Emily, is 16. And last year, and she had long, blonde, gorgeous hair, natural blonde. She decided she wanted to bleach it and color it pink. Her whole head. And this was during the shutdown. I'm like, you really don't want to do that. Like, this is a simple example. I was like, you're going to ruin your hair. I was like, I was like, you're going to ruin your hair. And like, your hair's perfect just the way it is. And what's wrong with it? It's so beautiful. And, be like, oh, you'll never get it back. I talked to my mom and she's like, you did dumb stuff with your hair. You're going to make mistakes with your hair. And she's going to have to learn that lesson. Just let her color it pink. I'm like, okay. And then I had to go to her like, what, I'm really sorry that I forced this on you. And I was thinking of, how I thought other people would take it and all these things. And I had to tell her I was wrong.
Yeah.
And she had pink hair. Now she has like bleached hair with dark roots and it's, but she felt really confident in it. And I felt so bad after she had gotten it done because I could see her face just light up and she was so happy. And I was like, and I had to apologize to her. I said, I'm really sorry. Yeah. I was trying to protect your hair and that was dumb. What I should have been protecting is who you want to be.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful example. For a small example, it's really a beautiful one. If we expect our children to grow up, as parents, we all hope our children are going to grow up to be strong critical thinkers, good problem solvers, make wise decisions. And if we expect them or even have a hope that they're going to grow up to do these things, then we have to let them practice that.
Yeah.
We have to let them practice critical thinking and problem solving. We have to let them make mistakes when it's still safe to make them. A mistake on your hair, and not to say it was a mistake. I'm sure it looked excellent.
Yeah.
But a mistake with your hair, something you regret with your hair, that's maybe a small way to learn a big lesson. And that carries over in our lives. And when I became a single mom, it was me and my 2 kids and struggling to make ends meet. And I know that this is a story that so many single moms can relate to. Like, how are we going to make this happen? And what I knew was that it was not going to be possible for me to be the very best mom I could be if I was in charge of every little decision for 3 people. Right. And so it really became like this, okay, you guys we're going to teach you how to do things for yourself. And they did. From the time they were really little, I've never made their school lunches for them. Since preschool, they've made their own school lunches. They make their own doctor's appointments. They've got Amazon logged into my accounts. And if they need something, they text me, ask, and they put it on there. We're synced with calendars. They manage their own calendars. They've gotten themselves showered and ready for school and bed. I mean, not to say that I'm not there with this loving support, but it's very important to me that they know how to take care of themselves. If they don't do their laundry, they don't have clean clothes. I'm not in charge of that. And one thing that I know for certain, and I'm grateful for it, my children will never know what it is to not know where your next meal is going to come from. They'll never know what it is to not have electricity and running water. They'll never know what it is to not be loved by their mother and father. They'll never know what it is to not feel safe in their own home. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm also very aware that hardship builds character. Adversity builds character. And when I became a mom, I had this mild fear that because my children were never experienced adversity to the level that I experienced it, I can see, looking back at my own trauma and my own adversity in the early years of my life, how that shaped me to be the person I am today, and the lessons I learned from that. And I'm like, gosh, if they're never going to have to walk that path, how are they going to learn these lessons? And so I feel like it's doing them a disservice to come running in at every sign of discomfort, every sign of a problem. When they tell me something's hard, I say, good. It's supposed to be hard. It teaches you how to work hard.
So could you give me some examples, if you're okay doing that with your kids, on how you have given them that complete autonomy and it taught a great lesson?
I'll give you a couple. So one is a small example, but it's one of my favorite little anecdotes because it really shines a light on how important this lesson was for such a young child, and a really easy way for him to learn it. My son was in kindergarten. We were running out the door, rushing to get ready for school, rushing out the door, running late, and he's putting his shoes on his feet. And one of his tennis shoes is tied in a double knot, and he can't get this knot untied. And my daughter comes swooping in. She's like, give me your shoe. I'll do it for you. And I stopped her. I said, you hand that shoe back to your brother. And she looked at me surprised, and he looked at me surprised. And I said, Owen, you can do this. And he's flustered and he's crying and he can't focus. And I said, we're going to take a pause, put the shoe down, take a deep breath, because the first step to accomplishing a problem is to calm down and approach it from a logical place. And so we got him calmed down, and he picks the shoe up and he's instantly frustrated again. And then he's like, we're going to be late if I don't do this. And I said, we'll sit here all day. I'll miss work. You can miss school. This is more important. And when he realized I wasn't going to untie this double knot for him, and I was actually going to sit there and wait for him to untie the double knot for himself, he finally, you could see it happen, where he takes this deep breath, he calms down, and he looks at this double knot and he says, okay. And he starts really working it. He gets the knot untied some 2 minutes later. And when he did, this smile, and that you can see how elated he was. I did it, Mommy. And he's so proud of himself, and he's wiping tears off his eyes, and he's feeling so good. And I'm cheering him on. I'm proud of him, and I'm giving him all the encouragement. And I said, do you feel this feeling right now? This feeling of how proud, don't you feel proud you did that? And he's like, yeah, I'm so proud. I said, feel that feeling in your body. Doesn't that feel good? And he said, yeah, it feels so good. I said, if I would have untied that knot for you, I would have robbed you of what that feels like. And what it feels like to accomplish to accomplish a problem that's put in front of you without anybody coming to your rescue. That's not something anybody can tell you. You have to feel it. That is the reward of hard work. And he was 5 when that happened. He's about to be 12. And he still talks about that to this day.
Really? Man, I want to go back to when my kids were learning to tie their shoes now. That's brilliant.
And so it's little things like that we can really not come to their rescue for every little thing. We can make them set an alarm clock. We can say, oh, you don't have any clean laundry because you didn't wash your clothes. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
Right.
Another thing is, like, I don't play referee. So when my kids argue with each other, sometimes, siblings will argue, and they'll do it to a volume to make sure you can hear, so that you'll come running in and like take a side and break it up. And I'll tell them, this isn't my problem to solve. You guys need to figure it out on your own. And this is not any of my business. Leave me out of it. And they really have gotten so good at communicating with each other, because I don't come in and say, you're right, you're wrong. Yeah. I don't touch it.
Inevitably, you picked the wrong one, and both of them were wrong, actually. Yes.
And then the freedom that comes from taking that weight off your shoulder as a mom, to have to break up the bickering and break up the arguing and come running in on every tantrum. Tantrums are a great one.
Well, yeah, because single moms, we don't have time for that. Because meanwhile, you're trying to provide. Were you doing training and physical training for people then?
Yes, I had just started when I got divorced. I joined the gym for the first time in my life. I had no idea how to work out.
Gosh,
I knew
that's
nothing.
when I started lifting weights, when I got divorced.
Yeah,
Yep.
I knew I had been in a relationship my entire adult life that had defined me. And when I left that marriage, I realized I didn't know who I was.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't know what kind of music I liked. I didn't know what I wanted to do for fun. I didn't know where my life was going. I didn't know anything. I was so tied up in knots and stressed out and depressed. And it was finding fitness that made me realize, okay, the only way I'm going to be the best mom I can be is if I can heal myself. And I have to put myself first. It's you get on the airplane and they say, put your own mask on before you help your kids put theirs on. And that's because, like, you are useless to your children if you are not taking care of yourself. And I think a lot of moms, single moms, hear me on this. We have guilt when we take care of ourselves, because we think we have to give them everything we've got. We've got to pour our entire cup into them. But all that does is leave us on empty. And as long as we're on empty, we're going to be snappy at them. We're going to be shooing them away. We're going to want breaks from them. We're going to want our space. And then the guilt piles on, because you don't feel like you should feel that way, and you don't want to feel that way because you love these humans so much, but you're so tied up in knots that you don't put yourself first. You are useless to them. And I had lived a life of incredible trauma, and I knew I needed to heal myself if I was going to be the mother that I always needed, the mother that they needed. And I put that before everything. And I have invested in myself in the last 10 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal development. And I mean, not all at once, everybody.
I know.
Not all at once.
Slowly and surely. Yes.
Slowly and surely. But courses and programs and books and everything I could get my hands on, because they deserved to have a mom who knew who she was, to have a mom who wasn't projecting my trauma and my fear and my insecurities right onto them. Because that's what we do when we're not healed. We take what we're scared of, what we went through, how we feel, and everything goes through that lens, and it gets projected right onto our kids. And this is how the cycles aren't broken.
So do you feel that growing in confidence as a woman for you is now trickling down and giving your children confidence to be who they are because you fixed you?
Absolutely. And, saying I fixed me, that's a big statement. The fixing never ends, Right, the fixing never ends. The work is never done. The growth never stops. But yeah, I can see we'll call them generational curses. Yep. The things that, my grandmother, how she raised my mother and how my mother raised me, and how they trickle down from generation to generation. But all it takes is one person to say, not this time. My kids are not going to grow up thinking this or doing that because of me, because I didn't take the time I needed to be the person I need to be, to find love in my heart, forgiveness in my heart, to not be triggered by the things that have traumatized me in the past. Our trauma defines us only if we let it.
Yep, I agree. And our limitations are only limiting us if we allow them. I call them so-called limitations. And let's talk about money for a second, if you can. And like that poverty mentality that just triggered in me, if I can go there. Because I have tried hard, but I still see it sometimes in my kids about, trying not to give them the thought that we can't afford things or being afraid of money, but still teaching them to have a good understanding of balancing money. But not grow up with that poverty mentality. I feel like it's a balance that I'm still figuring. Sometimes I'm weighed one way or the other, and I balance it out. Like things like my son, Andy, is 14, and he just wanted money to pay for the football ticket for a football game. I'm like, no problem. Here you go. Oh, Mom, I feel bad. I was like, it is my job. Like, that's fine. Like, you don't have to feel, this is my job. I work. You want to go attend this game to support your friends. I have absolutely no problem giving you cash right now to go buy. That's what I want you to rely on me for. I want you to be able to trust me. But it's like, he was like, it's okay, Mom. I don't want you to have to buy that for me. And I struggle sometimes with them remembering how tight things were when I first became a single mom, and having to say, we're going to have to wait on that, and trimming things to now helping them understand that anything is possible when you work hard. How do you balance that?
I think it's a beautiful thing for them to recognize that money, the value, that money doesn't just grow on trees. Right. That no matter, whether you are struggling to make ends meet or living a comfortable life or a lavished life, money it doesn't grow on trees. And this goes back to, my kids will never know what it's like to live the life that I lived. But that life that I lived built a character in me. And so what they can understand is that, maybe they shouldn't feel bad for taking the money, but acknowledging the gratitude, flipping it around in them. Like, I appreciate that you're grateful for this. And right now we're okay. But thank you for being so grateful for that, because there's the gratitude. I'm very real with my kids.
How?
So I want them to always trust me, to always be able to come to me, to talk to me about the things that they're struggling with, to talk to me about their dating lives or all of these things. Right. And so if I want them to trust me, then I need to be able to trust them.
Got it.
And so I'm very real with them. And instead of, putting on a mom hat, I really let them see me in my full authenticity. And I explain why I do things. It's never because I said so. I want them to understand my chain of logic. I've made a commitment to my kids from the time they were very little, and I've told them this over and over again. No matter what you come to me with, I will never judge you, and you will never be in trouble. It will always be a conversation. And that's not always easy to do. It's not always easy to do. But when you can hold your cool and bite your tongue, when you want to be so upset with them for the decision they've made, and instead of being upset, ask questions and offer support and ask them what they've learned from it and how they would do it differently. And so I'm very, very real with them in that, like, hey, money is something that we have to work for, but money flows. Money flows, and it comes out and it comes in. It comes out and it comes in.
And it's not a scary thing. It's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to see those numbers go down. You're going to see those numbers go up. And as long as we're working to make this world a better place and to raise each other up, and I always talk about working a life in service. As long as we're living a life in service, the money will always be there. As long as you're not sitting on the couch watching Netflix all day, the money is always going to
playing
be there.
Video games. Yeah.
It's abundance is all around us. And so I talk to them about that scarcity versus abundance mindset. And instead of being afraid of how they're going to view money, I just tell them, like, abundance comes from a place of creation. It comes from a place of high vibration. It comes from a place of gratitude and love. And when you can live in that vibration and be connected to spirit and be in gratitude and in love, the abundance will find you. Yeah. But when we're scared and we're stressed out and we're emotional, not emotional like it's a bad thing, but emotional, like overwhelmed, all of those things are low vibration. Those are scarcity mindsets, and abundance doesn't come from a place of scarcity. It comes from a place of gratitude.
There you go. I'd like to know how you've taught your children to be comfortable coming to you in a judgment-free zone with their problems. One of the things that I've done is we have a text me X rule. And I said, hey, like, I want to know, like, if go out with your friends, we're teenagers, I have a driver, go have some fun. Like, if you get into a situation and you feel uncomfortable and something's not right, or even if you've made a mistake, please text me X. And I will come, I will make up some kind of an excuse, and I will make sure that you're safe. Like, just text me X if you ever get in that trouble. My son first used it because he forgot his math homework. So I had to, this is not an but. So we've clarified. But that's one of the tools that I've used to help them feel safe, rather than getting a car with somebody that's been drinking, feel comfortable that they didn't have to hide it and just text mom X and I would come. What other ways have you done that to help them understand that this is a judgment-free zone? If you've made a mistake, I'm here.
Yeah. I think this is a great question because it goes back to toddler ages for me. If we're waiting until our kids are interested in boys and thinking about parties and wanting to go out with their friends without adult supervisions to have these conversations, it's too late. Yep. It's too late. And maybe not too late, like you can never recover, but you are going to be working an uphill battle because now it's been all one way up until this time. And then you're like, okay, you can trust me now. And they're like, okay, but whatever. Yeah. And so, I've always treated my children, I've taken the approach, and this goes back to being the mother that I always needed, is letting them feel heard and understood and respected. Letting their voice be a voice that mattered, no matter how insignificant the things seemed to be to me. Pain is relative. Struggle is relative. I always use the analogy of the broken crayon for a 2-year-old. Like this little 2-year-old is coloring with a red crayon, and that red crayon breaks, and they absolutely lose their top. Yeah. And it's easy to get impatient. Be like, God, it's just a crayon. Get over it. Here, take another crayon. But think about the last time that something you really cared about, something that mattered so much to you. Your phone, let's say your phone's replaceable. The red crayon's replaceable. Your phone shattered. Like, how much does that mess up your day?
That's bad.
Right? And if somebody were to just be like, oh my gosh, stop, get over it. What are you, this, that would be really rude. Right. And so I've taken this approach with them from the time they were born is your voice matters, what you say matters, and you have my intention when you're talking and when you're speaking to me. And so it's this line of respect. Now, as they've gotten older, it's getting to the point to where you can get them to talk about themselves and their actual problems comes with patience, because you've got to earn that trust first. They've got to know that there can't be any insecurity that it's going to be met with disappointment or judgment or rage. And so one of the things that I did was, instead of talking to them about them, I would talk to them about hypothetical scenarios. Right. Okay. And so I would bring these things to light of like, my daughter, from the time she was like 9 years old, we were talking about boys and parties and what's going to happen when we get into middle school and what's going to happen when we get into high school and peer pressure. And so I would just, organically, as it would come up, or maybe there was an example in our lives somewhere else with that had to do with other people, I would shine a light on it. Yes, you are going to inevitably like boys. This is going to happen. And when it does, I want you to be prepared with some of the things that you might face and then talking to them about my own life.
That's what my next question was. Do you talk to your children about what happened to you in your childhood, or what you go through as a single mom dating? I mean, our kids see us in those situations, so we might as well talk. But first question is, have you talked to them about your past?
Yeah. So it was very important to me. Part of my own personal healing journey was obviously with my mother. And it was very important to me that I didn't project my relationship and my experiences with my mother onto my children. That their relationship and experiences with my mother were unique to them. And with that being said, it wasn't like they were having sleepovers at her house or anything. Right. But I chose to forgive her to a point to not alienate her from my life, so that she could have this relationship with my children and allow them to have whatever their relationship was organically with her through that. They inevitably came to the own conclusions of keep our space from grandma. But I have not been shy about explaining to them, some of the struggles that I went through as a kid, and telling them some stories about how, it happened. And I've used those stories to really help them understand what I've learned from them. Yeah. So that's really been my goals. When I explain to them where I've come from, it's always through the lens of what I learned and how that made me a better person. And one thing that they've heard me say time and time again is, I am grateful for my struggle.
There you go.
I am grateful for my struggle because I learned so much about life, about communication. And there's so many things about resiliency, about responsibility, about I'm incredibly competent in a lot of areas of life because I had to be. And so while nobody wants their children to go through any kind of trauma, and I certainly I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the person I am today. And if that was able to be accomplished without having to go through that past, then that would have been great. But but here we are, and I'm grateful for it. And so, I talk to them about that. I talk to them about dating. It's always been very interesting to me to see, and I'm sure you've seen it before too. When the mom puts the mom hat on, it's a mother-child relationship. And then when the child's not around, the mom hat comes off, and it's like they're almost a completely different person. I know. And that was, I'm very sensitive to that because my mom was like that. Oh, yeah. And so it was one of the things that I knew I would never do. When I'm a mom, my kids are going to know exactly who I am. And I don't wear a mom hat. My kids are my best friends.
Yep.
And I tell them everything, less of some of the details, you know, that they don't necessarily need to hear. But I talk to them about when my heart is hurting or when my heart is happy or why and where that came from. I let them love me and support me through my times of vulnerability so that when they need support through their times of vulnerability, they know I'm going to be there for them too.
I like that. You know, maybe if you're listening right now, I like this comment you kept saying, I'm grateful for my struggle. Is so many of us, and I get it, and I've been there. I've had the thoughts of feeling like a victim as a single mom instead of being grateful. And I remember a turn that I had, and I had to realize, no, I have to be grateful because I never want my children to feel like they're a burden to me. And I never want to complain, you don't know how hard I work, or you don't know how hard I've had it. I want them to be grateful for their life too, and not feel like anything's missing and not feel like anything's wrong. This is just our family. This is the way that our family works the best for us. You know, it may not be like every other family. It's becoming more common that kids go back and forth between parents, but this is the way we work best. And I am grateful for the lessons that I've learned in my single motherhood and coming out of the situation that I was in, and that I can say I'm grateful for where we are. It's extremely powerful to make that switch in your life. And don't beat yourself up if you haven't made the switch yet, but just do it now. Just as Sara has taught me, just focus on who you're becoming. And get rid of the, whatever that was in the past, is who you're becoming is the most important. And we're always becoming.
Always. The growth never stops. And the struggle never stops.
It's a different one.
It's going to be a different one because life has struggle. And that is why it's so important for us to stay in this high vibration and connected to our heart and connected to each other, is because we're not meant to do it alone. Our kids are not meant to do it alone. And if we can all just be there for each other with this, in the space of compassion and understanding, and sometimes a loving, kick in the butt for each other, because sometimes that's what we need to get out of our victim, is somebody to say, hey, snap out of it, and as a mom, that's, part of our responsibility too, is snap out of it. Let's look at this from a different angle. Let's give you a different perspective.
Yeah, like when the kid doesn't make the team, or, my son struggles with sometimes getting in trouble at school because he's Mr. Social. I'm like, dude, what are you going to do? I can't get another email from your teacher that says you're talking in class. Well, it's boring. Well, okay, maybe the class is boring to you, but you have to figure out a way. What can we do? I like that. And then keeping each other accountable. And that's what Sara and I are here for you, single moms. I think both of us have a very similar passion in life, is to, not say that we have it all figured out. I'm not speaking for you, but
definitely don't have it all figured out.
But what we do know, we'll pass along. And the mistakes that we've made, we'll pass along to say, don't do this. I found this roadblock. And just to try to become amazing, strong, great examples to not just our children, but to everyone as single mothers.
And, going back to letting them make mistakes, we've got to let them make mistakes, because we make mistakes. We have to let them see that we make mistakes. We're only human. And I say we have to, by all means, do whatever it is you want to do. I feel very obligated to make sure my children know that I'm human and that I make mistakes. And when I make a mistake, it's okay for me to be sorry. When I am faced with a difficult situation, our kids are watching us all of the time. And they will learn so much more from what you do than what you say. And I'm very aware of those tiny eyes on me at all times. And so thinking of times in the world where perhaps a confrontation happens, or there's, something small to road rage to something big to where there's a blow up somewhere in a public place. They're watching. They're watching how you respond to that. They're watching how you regulate your emotions. They're watching the tools you use to regulate your emotions. And so what I'll do is I will point it out to them. Notice how when that person cut me off, this is just an arbitrary example. When that person cut me off, how I just took a deep breath, slowed the car down, kind of shook it out a little bit, and kept on driving. Did you notice how I did that? And I'll say, yeah, I noticed that. I want you to know that inside my body, it didn't feel like that. Inside my body, it felt angry and hot and uncomfortable. And if I didn't choose to make the decision to take a deep breath, slow the car down, and shake it off, then I might have lost my temper. But I want you to notice that I made a choice when it was hard to make that choice. It wasn't easy to make the choice to regulate my emotions, but I made a choice while it was hard to do it. It's always easy to say we're going to do it. And then when we're faced in the moment and emotion takes over, emotional regulation is something that every human on this planet can continue to grow their entire lives because nobody ever has that figured out completely. But we can practice it, and there are tools that we can use, and awareness is probably the biggest one. The awareness that those tiny eyes are watching me, the awareness how to use my breath to calm my nervous system, teaching them how to use their breath to calm their nervous system, you know?
And Sarah's going to help you with that too. I call that the art of no reaction.
Yeah.
And I am not always great at it, but I have the focus of being better at it, especially when it comes to exes and to be honest, teenage daughters are hard. And I was like, no, because initially I want to be like, what? Are you kidding me? Are you joking? The reaction on my face to something. But I've learned, like, even though I can react on the inside, but on the outside, I'm like, okay. Even my kids know you're deep breathing, Mom. You're right. I'm just taking some breaths.
Yeah.
I'm figuring this out right now. Give Mom a moment. So, Sara also is really great at meditations to be able to work on that breath work. So I know you have we're going to do a free gift for all the brave babes. You can download a meditation.
Yes, absolutely. So I have so many meditations that I use in my coaching practice. I do one-on-one coaching for not just fitness and nutrition, but also mindset, and overcoming the parts of our past that we need in order to become the best version of ourselves for the future. And a lot of that is to do with motherhood. This is where I really shine is in motherhood and these different perspectives and approaches that we can take. And then a lot of it is even just learning who you are and how to heal and emotional regulation. And so I do so much mindset work with so many people, and it truly is my passion to help people untie the knots that life has left them tied up in, and to show them that it doesn't have to feel so heavy and it doesn't have to feel so hard. And with so many different practices under your belt, as we continue to utilize those practices, they become easier and easier. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm flowing. I'm moving through this beautiful journey of life, and I'm feeling a lot better doing it. Oh, and because I'm feeling a lot better doing it, my body's changing, my skin is changing, my sleep cycle's changing, my desire to eat or not eat junk food is changing, because what we feel on the inside changes what we look like on the outside. And what we think in our mind, our body hears.
Yep.
And our mindset is very, very, very powerful. And it is the key to unlocking your own personal potential, your emotional regulation, and your ability to just step up and be the very best version you can be for your kids.
And Sara helps me personally. That's how I found her. And that's why we're doing this podcast, is she helps me with those meditations, those coaching of emotional regulation, and also my fitness and my nutrition. I'm like, Sara, just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear from you, brave babes. If you have a question, if you're a single mom and you're wondering, how do I navigate this situation? We all have unique, crazy situations. reach out. You can call the hotline for my podcast, 5304-AMANDA, or you can text it, 5304-AMANDA. I try to get to as many of those calls as possible. If I'm sleeping, I probably won't answer it. But so call or text. If I don't pick it up, leave a voicemail. Or text if you feel more comfortable, and maybe we can bring those on the next episode, and then we can talk about those things. What do you think?
Absolutely.
I just have that idea.
I absolutely love that. And I talk a little bit more about the book that I'm writing and the messages that it's going to be giving to all of the single moms out there. I think that a message of support and guidance and just some of my own experience and different perspective is always valuable. So
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you for having
You're
me. I
awesome.
really appreciate it.
Isn't she the best? I know. So you got to go get her free meditation. Download it from willfulwarrior.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. And if you want to know more about how to live a more strong and courageous life, I'd also love for you to sign up to be one of my brave babes. And I'll give you a free gift too. Just go to getyourbraveon.info and you can download my free 30 days of thankfulness. And it just is the right thing this time of year to help you focus on gratitude, because when you're focused on all that you don't have, you're never going to have enough. But when you focus on all that you do have, you will always feel like you have more. So check that out. Getyourbraveon.info. Check out Sara in the show notes. She can help you with mindset, meditation. She can get you in the best shape of your life with workouts and nutrition. She's the best. She's my go-to person, so I completely trust her, and I know that you can trust her too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If it meant something to you, I would be honored if you could share it with a friend and leave a review. Follow the podcast. If you could, rate it 5 stars, leave a review, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. Thanks so much, Brave Babe. Also want to say thank you so much to my friends at lifeaudio.com. They have fantastic podcasts about faith and prayer and parenting. Check them out, lifeaudio.com. And together we can get our brave on.
It's time for Medicaid open enrollment in Delaware. From Wilmington to Bethany Beach, connections run deep in the first state. And AmeriHealth Caritas Delaware is dedicated to connecting you to care. To learn more, visit AmeriHealthCaritasDE.com or call 800-996-9969.
Get a quote at AAA.com/insurance and save by bundling auto and home.